Okay, good morning there, everyone. Hello. How you guys doing? Can y'all hear me okay? Morning, good. Well, did you guys all have a good little Thanksgiving break? Get some time off before the finals and all that stuff? A little bit, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're in the last week of class here. This is our last meeting. It'll be pretty quick today. Just have a few last things to go over. So if you guys do have any questions or anything on the final, make sure you ask today. Final is due in 1 week. Just a reminder, there's no late work on the final. Just because I have to get those graded and get my grades submitted the next day on Thursday. So no final work due. So make sure everything is moving along with those and things like that. So today I'll just go over kind of the last few little things and show some student examples from other quarters. But other than that, that will be it for today. So yeah, any questions just kind of as you guys have started working, as maybe you started the thumbnails or as you've looked over the project in more details, anything confusing, any other questions that has come up? You guys okay? You feeling confident? Has everyone started and chosen a story? Okay. I will assume you guys are all good then. All right. So no questions. All right. So let me just go over here really quick to show these last few things of what I am looking for on the final and kind of what your grade will be based on. It's basically all the same stuff we have been talking about all quarter. But again, I just want to see you put it all together into a really nice, well-created, good piece of final art. So it goes all the way back to stuff we talked about that first day of class and kind of just combines it all in a really nice way. So line variety, so thick lines, medium lines, thin lines, dash lines, probably some texture lines, or maybe depending on your style, might have some texture lines in there as well. Okay, so line variety, focal point, clear focal point, make sure it stands out, make sure everyone knows what it is. Some sketches, I've seen a couple of thumbnail sketches from people that have submitted them to the discussion already for critique. Some people may have 2 focal points, you may have 3. So if you do get into 2 or 3 focal points, make sure they are all standing out and they all have their own value contrast. Okay, you don't want anything that's important in the composition to get lost. If you're worried about it getting too complicated, stick with just 1 focal point. If you do have more than 1, try not to go more than 2 focal points. I'd say 2 would be the max. Don't try and go for 3. But yeah, make sure if you do have more than 1, they all have value contrast and they're all standing out. Again, value contrast, light against dark, dark against light to be very clear to the viewer. Good silhouette shapes, clear silhouette shapes, unique silhouette shapes, interesting silhouette shapes. Avoid those basic shapes that we've talked about. So mood is also something I want to see. You don't have to have just like one clear mood like we did on the previous project, but maybe you got some creepy and some motion in there. Maybe you have friendly child and childlike, but also maybe a little motion, or friendly and childlike, but maybe a little creepy too. So think about all those moods we practice and how to combine them and make something interesting and unique. Obviously the story here. So when you submit your thumbnails for critique, make sure you tell me what story you're doing so I can give you Effective feedback, and then texture and pattern. I'll give a quick little demo of that today, but somewhere in your final art, I want to see texture or pattern. A lot of you guys have done that already on the mood projects and other things like that. So having that texture and pattern is going to be something I am looking for. Okay. So again, just a good culmination of everything. What's this one? Okay, here's a few student examples. We'll kind of just go over why these ones were good. This is Joanne's. I think this is from 2 quarters ago or so. This is Hansel and Gretel. So just basic, everything labeled here. Put your name, put your story that you're doing right here, and then put whatever I'm looking at on each page, okay? So you can have subpar artwork, but if you have really good presentation, remember that's like kind of just an easy 20 points there. Workup sketch has values, value in the workup sketch. Studies, 1 page of studies. So just practice drawing different things. Here, there's practice of drawing houses, of hats, of noses, of candy. Then 1 page of photo reference that you use for inspiration. Remember, photographs, not other artists' illustrations. So don't do other artists' drawings, photographs. And then there's the final art. Cool, so the house is the main focal point here. It has the most value contrast. It also has a very interesting shape. And then the witch and the kids down here are kind of secondary focal points. They're not as important. The main thing to look at here is the house. Good pattern. So this student used stylized pattern rather than realistic texture. So you kind of have to decide on your own what you're going to go for. So got some texture here in the grass. And then I just like this subtle pattern in the background. I thought was a nice touch. And remember, you can do a second piece if you would like for extra credit. I think it's worth 20 to 25 points if you get that done in a quality manner. And then the written reflection. So only do that second piece if you have time to do another good piece of artwork. I don't want them both looking rushed, but if you finish this one, it looks good and you have time to do a second one, feel free to do that. But don't have like 2 pieces of artwork that look really rushed. It's better to get 1 really good one for your final if you have time to do that second one. But there's a frame around the artwork, there's clipping mask used, and it all came out nicely on this one. Sorry, I'm just looking for another one. Jasmine's. This is Jasmine's. This is from a while ago. I think this is from before COVID times, but yeah, so thumbnails, playing with different compositions, studies, wolf studies, girl studies, guy with a gun studies, different bushes. So she took 3 different pages of her sketchbook. You only need 1, but whatever you end up doing for studies, just include those. Workup sketch. So here they had a different amount of workup sketch. So there's 3. That's different than you guys. But final art. But nice texture here on the trees, texture in the grass. I like the edge of this grass is all jagged, showing texture. Nice light value against dark value for the main focal point. So here it has 2 focal points, eyes of the wolf, and then the girl as well. So the viewer's eye will kind of bounce back and forth between those 2. Make sure this font matches this font. Little things like that for presentation. What's this one? Here's a Hansel and Gretel. or no, a Rapunzel one. But really good use of dark values in this one. Look how dark that hair is. Really makes the lighter values of the face stand out because the hair is so dark, and the dark and the light is right here in the foreground, making that really stand out nicely. And then there's less value contrast as we go back into the distance. But reference, studies, workup, and thumbnails. It's all there. Right. Any questions after seeing these? All right. So I just want to give one more note on studies and using reference photos. So let's say you were doing, oh yeah, the one with the wolf, sure. The Little Red Riding Hood with the big wolf. Did I put that away? So the only thing this one's really missing is some solid 100% black. I would have pushed this area right around the main focal point to 100% black. That's the only thing this one's missing. She gets close to 100% black. This is like a 80 or 90. But do that as a final check in your artwork. Where is 100% black in the composition? Do I have it on the focal point, near the focal point? And is it used in a very bold and dramatic way? But a lot of good options with the silhouette shapes here, and all these silhouette shapes she designed. She's really good at designing these silhouette shapes to read really well. So that's the main reason why this one came out so nicely. Any other questions? Okay, cool. So let's say for using reference photos, again, I know it's tricky to like completely avoid other artists' work. There's tons of animations and Disney and other books out there that can influence your style, and probably will it a little bit. That's okay. Main thing we want to avoid is just copying other artists' work and copying like other artists' character designs or background designs. So the biggest way to avoid that is to use photographs rather than looking at other artists' illustrations. So let's say you are doing Rapunzel and you wanted to design a tower. How are you going to design this tower she lives in? Well, first you have to decide if you want like an old-timey tower, a futuristic tower. Is this going to be a creepy story where you really exaggerate the points of this tower, or is it going to be more friendly and kids-like? That will help influence your design. But the biggest thing I do is go and look for good photographs of different types of towers. So these were just a few I grabbed before we started today. I thought they all had interesting silhouette shapes. That's the main thing I'm looking for when using photo reference. There's also some interesting texture and pattern on these. So what I'll usually start to do is just move this to the side. And I'll just kind of start first by just drawing these. So just as a study, just kind of sketching these out, not worrying about being perfect. I really like this one because it's asymmetric with this little point over there. And just starting by kind of drawing them and getting a feel for what makes a tower a tower. How do I communicate that this is an old medieval tower here? Okay, so you do this with a couple of them, a couple of those photographs you find, and then after you do some of those, just kind of sketching them out, then you can start to exaggerate them and make them your own. Try and make them fit the mood of your story, fit your own style of drawing. So here I'm starting to just kind of exaggerate and make this an extra pointy tower here. And it depends for every person, like how many of these you really need to do. Again, I said I want to see one page, so some of them can be just straight copying the pictures, photographs, and then some other ones can be where you're starting to make them up out of your own head. Okay, but hopefully this part of the process is fun. I know I really enjoy looking at these different sorts of shapes and figuring out what I want to design in my own artwork. Okay, so now that once I have another one in here, one like that with more of a rounded top. So once you kind of do that and get a feel for these different things, then you can start to sketch your own and exaggerate them. So maybe I want to make this like super pointed, exaggerate that point. You know, maybe I want to make this creepier. So maybe we got another thing kind of hanging off here with a point. Make this really tall. And this is where you kind of get to have fun with it. Make it your own, make it unique. You've looked at some pictures already. And I can take, you know, maybe I like this tower to put up here, but I like this little base part to put down here. You can combine these in different ways. All right. So does that kind of show you guys how to use reference a little bit and how to make your own designs? Any questions on that process at all? Yeah, so a lot of it is just, where is my Google search? Just looking at these different Google searches here. Here I typed in medieval tower. This one I typed in castle tower. So you can just think of other descriptors to add, like old castle tower, stone castle tower, beat up castle tower, things like that. And there's a whole bunch of variety. These ones are much more blocky and boxy. This one's super pointy. And it can help you figure out, you know, different angles of how to draw it and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff out there. It just takes a little bit of time and effort to go in and kind of find what would work best for your story. This one's really cool too. All right, so let's take one of these designs. We're gonna go plop it into this scene. So let's say this was our scene where we wanted our tower. Oops. How did I draw that? I kind of forget. And this little thing here. Extend this up. Pointy tower. Okay, so now I'm going to see if you guys watched. Did you guys watch that video on texture or on perspective that I sent you guys over the break? Hopefully you did, because that is something I want to see in your drawings. Okay, for the sense of depth and a sense of texture, which one of these hills here should be the darkest? One, two, or three, since they go off into the distance. Which one should be the darkest value to make it feel close to us? Three should be the darkest. Yes, exactly. So let's make three the darkest. I'm gonna get close to 100. I'll get to like a 90% here-ish. And then we just fade away as we go off into the distance. So that if that was an 80, then we got about a 75 for this hill. Since this hill is the same distance as the tower. I'll put the tower at that 7580 as well. And these ones will be the lightest. So again, that's what I want to see. You guys will probably have some perspective somewhere in your drawing since you're doing it representational. So whatever is closest to us will be the darkest and have the most value contrast. There we go. Okay, so now let's say, let's pretend this is your workup sketch. Where can you add some texture in here? Where would be a good place to add texture or pattern? So my style usually goes a little bit more towards realistic. So I do more realistic texture. Some of you guys might have more stylized, so you might do kind of just simplified patterns as well. So yeah, texture in the grass. Here, you want texture in the foreground is always a good place for texture because that adds to the perspective as well. I'm not gonna be able to see texture on these mountains off in the distance, okay? You might see them in real life, but again, we're simplifying this from real life, so it clearly communicates that perspective. Yeah, sure, let's put some clouds in the sky. That can be some good texture as well. And now this adds in some more value contrast right around our focal point. So that worked out well. Okay, and the other place to add pattern or texture is where? Texture in the foreground. And on the tower, exactly, on the focal point. So this texture and small details just kind of draws the viewer's eye. So you don't want them to linger on these mountains. Again, like if I was to put all this texture and details here on these mountains, it wouldn't necessarily be bad, but that's not where I want people to be looking for a long time. I want people to be looking at my focal point. And then also the texture adds perspective. So yeah, so now we can come here. I can just add some pattern here on the spire. Same with this part. Okay. So you can do this as well. Let's put this together. If you had a more stylized look to your work. So let's just like kind of simplify this. Maybe make this more of a kid-friendly story. This is a little out of my normal stylistic wheelhouse, but that's okay. It's good to try different things. So now for pattern here, maybe you just use like a simple line pattern here in the foreground. Maybe use a checkered pattern on your tower. Okay, so maybe you design your own patterns. Maybe you use some of those stock patterns from Adobe Illustrator. Some of you guys have used those really well. But it's the same idea where you're putting more pattern in the foreground and on the focal point. But I've seen some of you guys use those patterns really effectively in your own artwork as you've been creating stuff for this class. Okay. So yeah, it just depends on your mood, depends on your own style, depends on how you kind of create that perspective and depth in your work. but any of those can kind of work better for you. But I do want to see perspective, or no, I want to see pattern or texture somewhere in your work. You can't have both as well. And or texture. Pattern and or texture, somewhere in that final artwork. It can be realistic or stylized, that is up to you. Okay. Yeah, I like this one better. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have for today. Any last minute questions on the project? Okay, just remember, where did it go? So there is still that, yes, Animal, good question. Yeah, so if you have time to do that second one, it will be around 20 extra credit points. Plus or minus, depending on how well it is done. But usually that 20 points is good enough to, like, you know, if you're at a high B, it's enough to bump you up to an A. Or if you're at like a medium A, it's enough to bump you up to that high A, or whatever it may be. So it is a significant amount of points that can affect your grade as well. You can still turn in this urban sketching one if you want that 10 points of extra credit as well. There's been some cool ones I've seen that you guys have been working on. And then the final project critique, don't forget about that, is due Friday, worth 5 points. So I will be giving you guys feedback. You can post whatever you want in there. But probably you'll have your thumbnail sketches. If you have any workup sketches or digital art, you can post that as well. Remember to, you guys can contact me. I will have lab hours through this week. I don't think I'll have them next week, but if you need feedback on your work, just shoot me a message or email. I will be checking that throughout the week. But yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions before you go, let me know. But other than that, that is going to be the end of our class. And I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for the final. Thanks for all your work throughout the quarter. I really enjoyed seeing what you guys came up with. And just keep it up. Keep up the drawing. Cool. Good. Good, Cameron. Glad that helped.